Hello guys, my name is Umo. I'm a fashion designer and fashion entrepreneur. Welcome to University of Pattern Drafting, a channel where I share my expertise in pattern drafting and garment construction through tutorials. So today's tutorial is going to be on how to draft the pattern for this sort of pencil skirt. But before I do go into the tutorial, I want to say thank you to my 110 subscribers. Only about 2 weeks ago, we were just about 12 subscribers, and today we are 110, so I'm really grateful to God for that. Okay, so on to the tutorial. We need about 1.5 yards of Ankara fabric for this tutorial, and here are the other materials that we would be needing for the tutorial. And here are the measurements I'll be needing. We need the waist circumference, the hip circumference, the length of the skirt, and you can also go ahead and measure around your knee so you know how much to pencil it. Okay, so I start by creating a line parallel to the top of my pattern paper, 2 inches away from the top of my pattern paper and parallel to it. I also created a vertical line at the center of my pattern paper. So I'm going ahead to measure my hip line as well as my hemline. So your hip line is the widest part of your hip. If you are a UK size 6 to size 14, you can use 7 inches. If you are from a size 16 and above, you should use 7.5 inches. And then my hemline is the length of my skirt, which is about 20 inches. So this is what you can see me marking. So the next thing is to mark my hip arc. Your hip arc is your hip circumference divided by 4. My hip circumference is 36 inches. Divided by 4 is 9 inches. So that is what you can see me marking, and I'm going to mark that from my waistline to my hemline. So this tutorial is the first part in a 3-part tutorial on how to draft a culotte. A culotte is essentially an A-line skirt divided into 2. So to draft your culotte, you have to first draft your pencil skirt, then go ahead and draft your A-line skirt before you draft your culotte pattern. So watch this tutorial to the end to find out what the difference between the skirt for a culotte and a pencil skirt is. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the vertical line for my hip arc. So this one on my right hand side is my front pattern, while the one I'm drawing right now is my back pattern. So I'm drawing both front and back pattern together, which is actually much faster. So I'm also going to go ahead and square out my hemline as well as my hip line. And as you can see, I'm going ahead to label the panels front and back so that I'll be able to distinguish one from the other. So this is my front panel and the other side is my back panel. And take note of this, this is my center front line and the other side is my center back line. The middle line is my side seam. So I hope that is clear. So we're going to go ahead and start from the hem of our skirt. I'm going to start by penciling it. If this pattern is for a culotte, you do not need to pencil it. For a culotte, you need a straight skirt pattern, so you shouldn't pencil it. But this is a pencil skirt tutorial, so I'm going ahead to pencil it. To pencil your skirt, subtract between 1 and 1.5 inches from your hip arc measurement. So my hip arc is 9 inches minus 1.5, that's 7.5 inches. So from your center front and center back line, measure 7.5 inches inwards and use your curved ruler or your hip curve to connect that to your hip line. So that is what I have done. And make it as rounded as possible so that that hip point is not sharp. So this is how to pencil your skirt. If it is for a culotte, as I mentioned earlier, you should actually ignore this step. So I'm going ahead to work on my waist area. So to work on the waist area, find the difference between your hip circumference and your waist circumference. So my hip circumference is 36 inches. My waist circumference is about 29 inches. The difference is 7 inches. So I would use that to determine what my dart intake would be. So this showing on the screen is a table for dart intake. So for my 7-inch difference, I need one dart in front, which would be about half an inch in width, and then 2 darts at the back, which would be about 3/4 inches each. So I'm going to share this chart on the Instagram page. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram so that you can do a screenshot of that chart when you're drafting your pattern. So the length of my front dart is 3.5 inches, and as I mentioned earlier, my dart intake for the front is half an inch. So this is the center leg of the dart. The placement of the dart is determined by your bust span. So your bust span is the distance between your apex points, which is your 2 nipple points. So mine is 8 inches divided by 2, that's 4 inches. So from your center front, measure 4 inches inwards to create the center dart leg, and then for the half-inch dart intake, divide the half-inch into 2, that's 1/4 of an inch, and measure 1/4 of an inch on both sides of that center dart leg. So for the center back, the length of the dart is 5 inches, and the center back is also going to be at the same 4 inches where my front dart is. So whatever you use for the front is what you should actually use for the back. And for my back dart intake, my back dart intake is 3/4 inches divided by 2, that will be 3/8 inches. So I'm going to measure 3/8 inches on both sides of the center dart leg. So now to create the second dart, measure 1.5 inches from the last leg of the dart. Measure 1.5 inches and then go ahead and also measure your 3/4 inches. So 3/4 inches divided by 2 is also 3/8. So measure 3/8 inches to get the center leg of the dart, and from that point also measure another 3/8 inches to get the third leg of the dart. The length of the second dart is also 5 inches. So that's what you can see me drawing out here, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw out the dart leg. So remember, the second dart is 1.5 inches away from the last leg of the first dart. So this is essentially what it is. You can go ahead and cut out your pattern, and then remember to include your seam, your zip allowance in front, as well as your hem allowance and all that. So I'm going ahead to raise my back waistline by half an inch. I'm dropping it at the center back by half an inch. So I raised it at the side seam area by half an inch, and I'm dropping it at the center back by half an inch. So this is half an inch. I've raised it, and then I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect those points. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the front, but for the front, I'm not dropping the waistline by half an inch. I'm only raising it at the side seam area by half an inch so it can match that of the back when I'm joining the side seams. So use the curved ruler also to connect it back to the original waistline. So this is basically all. Remember that I mentioned that if this pattern is for creating this A-line skirt for the culotte pattern, you do not need to pencil it. So as you can see, I cut out mine without the penciling effect, and this is the culotte that I'm going to be uploading next. So make sure you subscribe to watch that. Thanks.